This is a Deadrop and Midnight Society channel, but the failure of Sony's new hero shooter Concord warrants discussion and actually relates to Deadrop and Midnight Society. Hear me out. Concord is a multiplayer-only game that just shipped on PlayStation 5 and PC. When it was first announced, I was thrilled that Sony was finally getting back into the multiplayer space. For too long, Sony had ignored its shooter and multiplayer franchises like Resistance, SOCOM, Killzone, Twisted Metal, Starhawk, Warhawk, the list goes on. And while Concord wouldn't have been my first choice from a stylistic perspective, it was a step back into the space which I welcomed. Then came the details. A $40 PvP-only hero shooter. Okay, well, if the game stands up, maybe it can succeed despite its direct competition like Overwatch, Apex, and Valorant, all being free to play. And maybe the PlayStation audience will eat it up. There's not a lot of PlayStation-targeted, specific PvP multiplayer shooters out there. Then I played it, and all of my fears from the trailers came true. Concord is a PvP-only first-person shooter that has boring, mundane gameplay, average at best multiplayer maps, and a dismal selection of modes. Play Concord for 30 minutes and it's painfully obvious that the game itself, you know, the part that will make a product a success or not, was not going to be a success. There are an abundance of multiplayer games out there that just offer way more content, way better quality content, and more fun than Concord does by a mile. Then it launched. It peaked at less than 700 concurrent players on Steam, and it quickly became obvious that the game was not going to make it. Now, in a mind-boggling turn of events, Sony has announced that it's refunding everybody who bought the game and taking the servers online in just a few days, and this is only like 2 or 3 weeks after release to begin with, because that few people are playing it. So where does Concord go from here, and what the heck does all this have to do with Deadrop? First and foremost, I do believe that Concord will launch again as a free-to-play game. It has to. Sony has reportedly spent $200 million in 8 years developing this game and even bought the developer. Like it or not, they're stuck with this game and the property. They've invested. They can't just leave it behind and write off $200 million, even though Warner Brothers has kind of been doing that. They even have an episode of Amazon's upcoming Secret Level series totally dedicated to it, which is a huge part of Concord's problem. It's obvious that a disproportionate amount of Concord's budget went into polishing the game's visuals, presentation, and world building. Even though it's a PvP multiplayer FPS, the game is chock full of high quality, high production value cutscenes that you'd find in like a normal Sony title that they often refer to as quadruple A, right? The Last of Us, Uncharted, those types of games. But why? Who really cares about these characters? Let me tell you, no one, because the game isn't fun to play, period. No one wants to spend time in this world, no matter how much character, color, and charm these characters have. It's like Sony spent the entire budget of Concord making it look and feel like one of Sony's cinematic third-person action games that have been so successful, like Spider-Man, and totally forgot to build a satisfying multiplayer first-person shooter. Whenever Sony likely launches Concord again, they're going to have to figure this out. How much of the game can they fix and rework? In my opinion, the gunplay needs to be totally reworked so it feels satisfying to shoot enemies, fight, and kill people. They missed that. They need more maps, they need more modes that are unique and fun to play. You can't sell people a $40 game that is essentially just team deathmatch and 1 or 2 other modes. When Overwatch launched, it was one of the few games on the market with payload, for example, other than Team Fortress. It was unique at the time. Concord doesn't have that. They're going to need to find a way to make Concord unique and fun by going back to the basics. But how much time do they have? How much money can they afford to throw at this thing before cutting their losses? What's it going to take? A year? 6 months? 2 years? How many millions of dollars? We don't know. This is what brings us to Deadrop and the approach to its development that Midnight Society has taken. Midnight Society's open development process and iterative snapshots since day zero has given the community insight and hands-on experience with what Midnight Society is building with Deadrop. We've been able to get a peek at the world, the gunplay, gameplay systems, map design, engage the developers in deep discussions about economies, user-generated content, movement systems, and more. While no developer is perfect, nor is any company in any field, by the way, what Midnight Society is doing is essentially the anti-Concord. When Sony officially debuted Concord earlier this year, the game was essentially done. It looked the way it looked, played the way it played, and systems had been built on top of systems built on top of systems. They'd already invested $200 million in 8 years of planning, development, and execution into this game, which didn't even have the basics down. It features loads of polish and production value, and even has an expanded media presence, which is something that I absolutely love, but they forgot to make a good game. By partnering with the community and letting gamers have access to very early, low frame rate builds with bugs and glitches, play in blockout environments with basic UI and no real progression or reason to play other than the core fun of the game, Midnight Society is partnering with the community on that core experience. Making Deadrop a fun game to play, first and foremost, is most important. All of the art, production value, polish, performance improvements, progression, everything that Concord actually got right can come to Deadrop later, and it will. And some of this stuff is actually coming soon in the early access build planned for November, and other things in the full 1.0 release in 2025. No game is ever guaranteed to be a success. No company is too big to fail. We've seen gaming industry giants like Blizzard and Valve make missteps over the last decade, something that at one point seemed impossible. But by developing Deadrop out in the open, Midnight Society is getting direct feedback about the core game design of Deadrop, something that Concord completely missed. And $200 million later, they now have to go back and figure it out. And it might be too late for Concord and Sony. No company can afford a $200 million mistake, and while 12AM's process has been experimental in many ways and not without its own bumps in the road, it's ultimately a safer, more ideal approach when it comes to actually making a quality FPS than waiting until the last minute, heaping on the razzle-dazzle, and then misfiring the actual game. If you want more Deadrop and Midnight Society content, be sure to subscribe to the channel. We're going to have a lot more for you here soon as we move closer to Deadrop Early Access in the coming months. And be sure to join me on my variety channel here on YouTube, Mayor Reynolds TV, or come chat with me live at twitch.tv/MayorReynolds. We're playing Spectre Divide, Black Ops 6, and Warhammer 40k Space Marine this week, so don't miss out. Thanks for watching, we'll see you in the next video. Mayor Reynolds out. This video is sponsored by Fortnite. Support a creator code MAYOR. That's all you gotta do is plug MAYOR into your Fortnite or Epic Game Store. Support a creator slot. Whenever you make a purchase, and a portion of that purchase will go towards supporting my content. It costs you nothing. Just plug it in anytime you see support a creator in Fortnite or the Epic Game Store, and it will directly support my channel and help increase the budget for content like our live action Deadrop short film, Midnight, which you can go watch right now. Thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate the support. MAYOR in your supporter creator slot. Thanks a lot.